the fallout, as you put it, from the Ryder Cup. There was more scuffling back and forth last week. That PGA of America president Don Ray Jr. had come out with an apology to the membership. Some people felt like that apology fell short. I think the part that people get caught up in is it seems as if the PGA of America keeps wanting to circle around back to the idea that, oh, well, it happened in Rome 2 years ago. And you and I both were in Rome, and you and I both were at Bethpage. And I think you and I both are going to agree that those were two vastly different atmospheres. You can't compare anything to what we experienced at Bethpage. I say all this only to point to a video that's on social media right now. And I suggest anybody that has an interest is go look at this video. And it's Baker Mayfield, the star quarterback for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And he's in the tunnel, clearly waiting to go out. And he gets jawing back and forth with a fan. And I would suggest you don't do this at work. You certainly don't have the sound up if you listen to it at work. I wouldn't even do it on a work phone. Don't do it around small children because it's very much not G-rated. It is just a vile exchange between star quarterback and what I can only assume is a drunken fan. And I went back immediately to the idea that was awful. No one should be subjected to that. But Baker Mayfield understands, yeah, this is my lot in life. If I want to be an NFL quarterback, sometimes I got to hear this nasty nonsense, and sometimes I'm going to give it back. I don't want anybody to make excuses for what happened at Bethpage. It was disgusting. No one should have had to go through that. But I keep falling back on the idea. If golf ever wants to be a mainstream sport, we need to stop clutching the pearls on this one.
But isn't golf entirely different? Like that was
we keep saying
extenuating circumstances in a football game where the players are typically not near the fans in close proximity. But
that's the point. He's right next to the
player going into the tunnel, heading onto the field. When you're on the field, you can't hear individual barbs about your wife, about some rumors, about your parents, about your friends, about your weight, like whatever the case may be. It's all sort of drowned out in a sea and a cacophony of noise and 60,000 fans in a jam-packed stadium. You can't single out individual barbs. Same thing in an NBA stadium. Yes, you are close along the sideline, but 60,000 fans, or an NBA stadium, but 20,000 fans are all shouting at once, particularly when you're trying to make a free throw. That's different. Where golf, it doesn't lend itself to that sort of continued and sustained noise. And so individual barbs, abusive taunts, those tend to stand out when, again, you don't have like the backbone and the backbeat of constant noise.
I would strongly disagree with your first part. That I don't think it does. I don't think those barbs get drowned out by the cacophony of a stadium. I think if we were to have any professional athlete on this podcast, they would tell you that, yeah, man, I heard stuff from the crowd all the time. And sometimes it got to you, and most times more than not, athletes tend to ignore it. Just look at the NBA last year. How many exchanges did we have between star players and fans last year in the NBA where they're barking back and forth at each other? LeBron James was involved in one of those episodes. So I don't buy the notion that, no, it's drowned out. It's just white noise at that point. And if that's the case, then I think you and I both walking inside the ropes at Bethpage, there was a certain amount of white noise when it came to being inside. Certainly when you got on the other side of whatever the name of that road was, Arnold Palmer Road, I think is what they renamed it, but it was called Round Swamp Road. That's the name of the road. Once you got on the club side of Round Swamp Road, I think there was a cacophony of noise there. Again, I'm not saying this is the direction golf should go. I'm not saying that this is a good idea because you're right. Golf should be different. Rory is right. Golf should be above this. But if private equity wants to move this to the next level, which I think is a safe assumption that what they want to do with their billions of dollars and then the investment in the PGA Tour and Live Golf, then one of those sort of unintended consequences is going to be what we ran into at Bethpage.
Another difference, though, in an NBA stadium, if LeBron James is jawing with a fan, what happens with the NBA stadium security? They immediately go to that fan, not just remove him from the game, but very likely are going to kick them out for the remainder of the season if they're a season ticket holder.
That happened at Bethpage. There was plenty of fans that got kicked out.
Not that many fans got kicked out, and they only got kicked out after 2 hours of just a torrent of abuse that Roy McIlroy was subjected to on that Saturday afternoon. So I do think there's a little bit of a difference there. This does lead me into another discussion that Colin Morikawa actually brought up on Wednesday in Japan. He's playing the Bay Current Classic, the no-cut event on the PGA Tour. It's the first time he's played, of course, since going 0-2-1 at the Ryder Cup. And if you remember in the lead up to the matches at Bethpage, when he had his press conferences, every player did, he said that the crowds, at least during the practice rounds at Bethpage, were kind of lame, a little bit tame. And he wanted, quote, chaos to rain down during the matches at Bethpage because he thought that the American players could then use that energy to their advantage. The whole point of having it in New York was to have it be loud and have it be difficult. He said, however, though, Rex, on Wednesday, he did not mean for this to cross the line. He was not saying that he wanted the fans to be rude. He takes zero responsibility for what actually transpired after his comment, which I think could be viewed as instigating or initiating some sort of, quote, chaos. You buying that? Do you agree with that? Colin Morikawa or anybody else bear any responsibility for that?
I don't think Colin Morikawa had any idea of how bad it would be. I don't think the PGA of America had any idea of how bad it would be. You wanted the crowds. That was the whole reason for bringing that tournament to Bethpage. It was the whole reason why in 2013 the PGA of America wanted to do it, because they knew the spectacle, the event it would become. It would essentially move the Ryder Cup to the next level. But no one wanted it to go in that direction. Unintended consequences, but consequences nonetheless. I think to pull back the curtain a little bit, when I interviewed the CEO of the PGA of America last week, I asked you for some ideas for questions, because we were going to get about 12 minutes with them, and I wanted the questions to be as concise. And yours was probably the best you sent me, and it was the buildup. I'm paraphrasing here. I don't remember exactly what the question was. The buildup to this was you wanted the PGA of America wanted loud, you wanted raucous, you wanted everything New York could possibly bring. Do you bear any responsibility for what happened? I found that the answer was a little dismissive, simply because there is a level of trying to not take responsibility for something that I think many people on that side of the ledger don't think was wrong.
I think you're right. And if you read the YouTube comment section on that podcast, again, I thought the interview was very well done. Derek Sprague did not come off well, according to our fans. They thought that he was aloof. They thought that he was sort of going round and round in some of his answers, not taking accountability, whatever the case may be. I think the PGA of America does bear some responsibility because of the pre-tournament messaging that we saw. And obviously you single out New York City as a place where the fans are notoriously loud. The fans are notoriously difficult. It is notoriously a difficult place to play. Xander Schauffele said as much on Wednesday in Japan. Knowing that, in my opinion, the PGA of America could have done a better job of preempting some of the abuse that we saw, having more security, being more vigilant, having a sort of an understanding, or at least an outward messaging that you still need to be respectful. And that's where I think Colin Morikawa was going when he said that he was asking for chaos. He wasn't saying chaos in terms of like Rory McIlroy enduring 3 days of abuse, and Erica McIlroy enduring 3 days of abuse, and Shane Lowry being criticized by everybody for his weight, or John Rahm with the Ozempic jokes. That was not what Colin Morikawa meant when he said that he wanted chaos. What he meant was that they wanted energy, that they wanted an atmosphere, that when they made birdies, they wanted the place to absolutely be unhinged in a positive way, in an energetic way, not to actually have this vitriolic response. I think his intention was good, and so I don't think Colin Morikawa bears any responsibility whatsoever, because that's how it should have been. Had the Americans played better, I really do think the place could have been absolutely electric. Instead, they didn't. They faltered. They played poorly. The fans who paid $750 were pissed, and they took it out, unfortunately, on their opponents.
Yeah, I'm not really worried about what Colin Morikawa or the PGA of America wanted or what they thought they were going to get. This was almost inevitable. And you're right. The fact that the U.S. team played so poorly for the first 2 days, it was outclassed so much for the first 2 days, certainly didn't help that situation. But I don't know why you ever thought it was going to be something other than what it was. Even if it was going to be an American blowout, I would argue that the vitriol would have probably just been louder, because that's what New York fans do. The idea that you want something different than what the New York fan normally dishes out at an event, whether that's a Yankees baseball game, or God forbid, I don't know who goes to New York Jets games, but if they go to a New York Jets game, why you would want to do that, I would have no idea. That's not what they do. They don't sit in those stands and politely clap a good hit. That's not the way a New York fan is wired. And I'm not quite sure why everyone on that side of the ledger, again, thought it was going to be something other than what it was. You're absolutely right. I don't think Colin Morikawa or even the PGA of America had anything nefarious in mind when they went into this, thinking that, yes, what we want is poor Shane Lowry being teased about his weight. Absolutely not. But if you were being realistic, and I think a lot of people now have come around to the idea that, yeah, we probably should have expected this.